بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم everyone. I'm so excited today to have our beautiful sister Lina Talib with us. I've known Lina for, I don't want to age us, Lina. I've known Lina for, I don't know, almost 20 years now. Subhanallah, maybe 15. Um, and subhanallah, from the minute I met her till now, just like I feel like Lina, you're like the caretaker of the community. May Allah give you strength and iman and ease and reward you for everything you do for our community.
Love you too.
I'm so happy to be here with you. Whenever I'm around you, remind me of Allah, and I appreciate that so much about you. So, we are going to start today by talking about preparing for Ramadan. We did this a little part one with Sister Hazel last week, inshallah, or last month, or a few weeks ago. And today, inshallah, we're just a few days away from Ramadan. And so Lina's going to help us prepare, inshallah. Lots of pressure, Lina. I'm just kidding. You're good. So welcome, Lina. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Amani, for inviting me. It's truly, I'm blessed and honored to kind of kind of co-host this with you and allow the many participants that are on the chat to kind of like get us prepared for Ramadan. So I'm definitely honored in doing that. And thank you for the comments that you said about me. Allah, the same back to you. Yeah, definitely always when I see you is in a place of khair. And alhamdulillah, always doing good things. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and your family too and your loved ones.
Ameen. Jamian. Thank you so much, Lina. Jazakallah khair. So we're just going to jump in, inshallah. And I'm going to start with more of like a personal question for you, Nina. What does Ramadan mean to you? When you think of Ramadan, what does it mean to you now? How has the meaning of it changed for you over the years in terms of your experience of Ramadan?
To be honest, I'm not lying when I tell you this, but I love Ramadan. Like I've always loved Ramadan, even growing up, even though it was to some people a challenge to stay away from eating and drinking. And yeah, I had some complications too, but I don't know, it was something about the spirit of Ramadan that made you do those not so easy things to be easy. And I love a jama'ah. Like I'm a person who loves to gather, who loves to eat together, who loves to do things like that. That's like my favorite thing. So I think the atmosphere of Ramadan, the mercy component of Ramadan, the aspect of eating together and breaking our fast together and praying together and going to the masjid all together and praying. Because we even at a young age, my mom always went. Like we always went to Taraweeh as far as I can remember. So Alhamdulillah, I feel like Ramadan to me is always a time of joy, a time of kind of reunion, a time of forgiving, letting go, certain things. So like honestly, I love Ramadan and I can't wait for it. Inshallah, Allah yuballighna Ramadan.
Ameen, Ya Rab, Ameen. If in the chat you love Ramadan, put your hand up because I think we could all relate, Lina, to all that coziness that you just described, subhanAllah. There is an atmosphere to Ramadan. There's a barakah. There's like I also love the part that everyone is worshiping together
Oh yeah.
extensively. Like that doesn't happen outside of Ramadan. Like
Hmm.
I don't know anyone who's like, yeah, there's extra prayers at my house every night if anyone wants to come. And no one does this. So, but during Ramadan, it's like it's every single night, and everyone is hurrying up eating because the next thing is tarawih. The goal is to get to the salah, and it's a beautiful, like sometimes it's chaotic, but it's beautiful. And the fact that we're all doing it, like you said, Lena, makes it easier. It makes it lighter to do
Definitely.
hard things, right?
Definitely.
Um, Even like intermittent fasting, because it's not religious and there's no obligation there. When I do it, I'm like, should I break it at 12 or should I break it at 2? Maybe I should wait till 3. And I break it at 11:30. So like it's harder to push
It's
yourself
true.
when there isn't this spiritual component.
Yeah, and it is, I 100% agree with you. I think that's what makes it so easy. Like when you fast, even regular fast or volunteer fast, throughout the year, it seems to be a little bit harder than when you do it together and you know the whole ummah is fasting with you, and everywhere you go, especially like me living here by Bridgeview, it's like little Palestine. Everybody is almost Muslim, you know. So it's like everywhere you go, you feel like that power of the jama'ah. And that's why, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves when we do things together. And there's more barakah and when we do things together. So yeah, it's like a race that we're racing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yes, I love that. SubhanAllah. It really does help being around a whole bunch of people who are doing the same thing, SubhanAllah, and me. It's a good lesson for us, SubhanAllah, outside of Ramadan is to, be around those who are still doing, ibadat that are hard for us because we can pull from their energy, inshallah, and pull from their example. And just being around it, it'll rub off onto us, inshallah, in some form, to whatever degree.
Yeah, we're definitely. I do that too, personally. Like when
Yeah.
you surround yourself with people that are doing similar to you or like can kind of work on the same goal, it makes it easier. So sometimes
Yeah.
you tag a companion with you to fast Mondays and Thursdays and plan on eating together or something like that. I always do that. Why? Because it kind of motivates me to do it, and at the same time you feel empowered that others are doing it as well.
Yes, yeah, subhanallah. And even in the ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about fasting, there is that sense of, Allah says, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ على الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That fasting was prescribed upon you as it was prescribed on those before you. Like you're not the only ones, When you remember you're not the only one going through something or facing a challenge, somehow it's like, oh, other people did it. And
Yeah,
that connection we have to each other is like, oh, if that person who I don't even know can do it, I probably
I could
can
do it too.
too. Yeah,
Hmm.
subhanallah. So this, fasting, Ramadan has a lot of themes just naturally ingrained in it, subhanallah. The two major themes that I've come across is taqwa, because fasting is connected to taqwa, and Ramadan is heavily engaged in fasting. But then there's also the element of, Ramadan being the month that the Quran was revealed, and it's the month of Quran. So we'll get to that part later, inshallah. But for now, I want to talk a little bit about taqwa because I feel like that's a topic, like subhanAllah, all Islamic topics, you can never get enough of, and it's
Yeah.
something that we constantly have to be reminded of because it's the foundation of our Islam and our Iman and our well-being. So in this ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that fasting was prescribed upon you, just as it was prescribed on those before you, so that you may attain taqwa. How do you define taqwa, Nina?
And for me, honestly, I know the definition of it is like fear of Allah or consciousness of Allah. But the reality is to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with you wherever you are. And that concept of us as humans, we tend to see like if the human eye seen it, it was seen. If the human eye didn't see it, then nobody knows I did it. But the reality is we cannot compare Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the human being. And the more we're aware of Allah and His beautiful attributes, we will then develop that sense of true taqwa. That taqwa, that understand that God is seeing, He's al-Basir. God is hearing, He is as-Sami'. God is Alim, He is the all-knower. He knows every single thing and He sees even the darkest ant on the blackest rock in the darkest night. That tells us what? That tells us that He is where we are at 100% of the time, seeing, hearing, and knowing everything that we do. Nothing is hidden from Him. So when we reach that point of taqwa, why is like fasting is one of those things that leads us to taqwa, because really fasting is different than any other act. Like when we say about salah, people see us praying. People can actually see us praying, standing, bowing, and prostrating. People, even if they didn't see us all five prayers, but they can still witness somewhere in our life, if they're around us in the afternoon or they're around us in the evening, or even if they were to happen to travel with us, they'll be able to identify if we are from al-musallin, right? Those that actually are conscious of their prayer and pray. But fasting, it's very difficult to tell if somebody's fasting. I know that some people show symptoms of fasting in the aspect of them either being tired or them being groggy or moody. Some people even will look at the signs of the tongue, which your tongue is usually lighter or white when you're not drinking or eating. But who really does that? Nobody. So you can actually fool a lot of people by saying you're fasting, but you're really not. And how many, Emma, how many of us when we were young and little and 6 and 7 years old, we used to sneak a little candy or sneak a little drink or sneak a little sandwich, and we really thought as kids that nobody's seen us, khalas, we could act like we were fasting that day. But subhanallah, this is an act that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how well we do it, the quality of our fast. He is the one who knows every nook and cranny from the second we open our fast to the second we break our fast, we close our fast. So subhanallah, I think fasting is one of those actions that really bring us that sincere kind of mindset of, do we have taqwa of Allah? Are we truly conscious of Allah? Are we in the form of worshiping Allah as if we see him? And yes, even if we don't reach that level of ihsan, worshiping Allah as if we can see him, know the fact that he sees us. So I really feel like taqwa to me is that I don't care who sees me, I don't care who's pleased with me, as long as Allah sees me, Allah knows what I'm doing and what I'm intending, and I'm working for the sake of Allah, I'm working for pleasing Allah, and I'm trying my best to stay away from things that displease Allah.
Mm. I love what you just said, Lena. I love how you said, I don't care who sees me and I don't care who's pleased with me. And that's a huge part of it because a lot of times we kind of have more taqwa of people than we do of Allah, right? And even when it comes to speaking the truth, because when you
Of course.
speak the truth, there's going to be plenty of people who don't like what you're saying, whether it's as you know on a large scale, like what's going on in Gaza, or it's on a family scale. Where like, oh, you're
Mhm.
the sheikh in the household. They're like, okay, relax. You're always coming up with this is not okay and that's haram and that's halal. And you may even have that kind of internal pressure in your home from your family to not to choose what's pleasing to the family and culturally what's okay and as opposed to choosing what's okay with Allah. So even in those moments where we feel social pressure or familial pressure, the taqwa kicks in and we don't what they think is secondary compared to what Allah thinks and what he needs from us and what he wants from us. And I also love how you mentioned that taqwa has to do with knowing Allah and sincerity, right? The more we know Allah, the more aware we are of Him, right? If it's God
Mhm.
consciousness, how could we be conscious of Allah if we don't know Him?
Exactly.
And how do we get to know Allah, Lina? What are simple ways that people can get to know Allah? And I just want to frame it this way. Sometimes we feel very far away from Allah. Sometimes we feel that from last Ramadan, we've become so distracted. Whether people are committing big sins, small sins, or not really committing sins like crazy, but they're just distracted. How can we reignite that awareness of Allah? How can we bring ourselves to learn about Him in simple ways?
I would say number one thing that helped me, is when I heard the verse that talks about, and I don't have it exactly in front of me, where it talks about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala categorizes us between those who are grateful and those who are ungrateful. Now I
Mm,
can actually share with you, obviously you need to know Allah, how to know Allah by walking towards Allah. Allah himself described himself, so you could know Allah by learning his attributes. You could know Allah by being looking around and seeing him actually in all throughout his creation. But I find myself very connected with Allah in that aspect, that I truly want to be of those that are grateful. I want to be in the category of people that are grateful, the person that Allah gave me on eyes for me to see what I have versus what others have, and not always kind of looking at what I have and being disappointed with it, seeing Allah in every aspect of my life, seeing Allah what He mends and what He makes difficult, seeing Allah with what opportunity He closes and what opportunity He opens. To me, everything I look at is this way, that everything I go through, and if it's khair, it's a blessing. I have to find a way to recognize it. I have to find a way to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have to, because if I don't recognize Allah in my life, then how can I worship Him? How can I love Him? How can I walk towards Him? How can I even be fearful of Him, right? How can I be hopeful in His mercy? If I can't intertwine between the do's and the don'ts, the blessings and the eases and the hardships, like, or the obligations and the prohibitions, if I cannot see that for myself, then how can I expect myself to walk closer to Allah? For a person to be conscious of Allah, you have to see Allah everywhere you are, with whoever you are, whether you're by yourself or you're with somebody. And this is something very important, that gratitude is a key ingredient, that gratefulness is a key ingredient that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees, and that's why He tests us. Amongst the reasons why He tests us, whether it's to filtrate us or to purify us or to elevate us, it is to see who is grateful and who is not, who is honest and who is dishonest, who is truly believing and who is being hypocritical. So I would say, like, one way to kind of learn about Allah, obvious ways, is to learn about Him, to learn about His attributes, to know His capabilities, to see Him throughout all of His creation, whether it's in humankind or anything else that He creates, even recognizing how He mends, how He makes things easy for us, and how certain times He puts halters on things, to not because He wants to prevent us, but to give us something better or to change our route, because we don't see what He sees. We don't know what He knows. So I would say what you said, the eagerness to, when we love Allah, we're willing to worship Him, definitely. We're willing to be conscious of Him. We're willing to fear Him. And we're definitely willing to hope in His mercy. So for me, in order to know Allah, I need to be able to give Him His proper platform. I need to know who He is and who I am. I will always remain His servant. I'm the weak one. I'm the poor one. I'm the vulnerable one. He is the provider, the creator, the maker. He's the one that makes it easy or hard. He's the one who ultimately has a plan, even if I have a plan, but His plan will get executed. If I submit to that, I will then start to see Allah everywhere I am, with every conversation I'm in, and I will desire to only please Him. Regardless, it does take a lot of strength to enjoin good and forbid evil, even on your own self. Even on your own self, which we're supposed to, we're required to. We're supposed to hold ourselves accountable. But I really feel like the only way we can do that is by consciousness. But the way we're conscious is to really recognize the favors of Allah around us, and to be happy and content and grateful for what we have, and not always look to what others, I would say, have. Look at what you have and be grateful for it, and work harder for what you want.
I love that connection between taqwa and gratitude. That is so beautiful and it's so accurate. SubhanAllah, and to see Allah, you're right. We hear a lot about, like, look at the trees and you see Allah, like His creation. Look at your own creation. Look at, the sky and all these things. And absolutely, like, that's its own way of thinking of Allah, knowing Allah. But I love what you said, Lena, about see Allah in your experiences, right? In your challenges and in your blessings. See Allah in those places as well. And subhanAllah, our blessings are there to test us and for us to enjoy them. And our experience and our challenges are there to test us, but also to allow us to grow. It's that
Right.
muscle, the spiritual muscle, subhanAllah. And
Definitely.
I love that idea, just how do you see Allah in those moments? That's so amazing. And just something I definitely want to, like, reflect on by myself, just how do I see Allah in my experiences, in those moments? And one of those ways is by being grateful, whether I'm being tested with something difficult or tested with a blessing, right? Just
And
to be grateful.
subhanallah, and you connect it with the hadith of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he says, wondrous are the affairs of a believer. that if something good happens to them, they are grateful and they recognize that favor and they utilize that favor in a way that's pleasing to Allah. And if somebody experiences any difficulty or hardship, they are patient, persevering through it, knowing that nothing that was meant for them is going to avoid them, and what wasn't meant for them is gonna come to them. So having that understanding of, yes, in fact, we are tested with both eases and hardships. The test of ease is gratitude, right? And the test of hardship is patience. And we have to be really truly grateful and truly patient when we are going through those scenarios in our life.
Absolutely. That's a great reminder, subhanAllah. Um, so what do you think are the struggles for people when they're trying to train their taqwa? They're trying to increase their taqwa. What are struggles that people face when it comes to that, and how can they overcome those struggles?
Well, I'll be honest, so we all have three enemies. So right when you said that, it triggered me into something that is very important and profound. Even if I want to be an individual and I want to be saying that I could do this on my own, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us in a way that we're social beings. We are social beings. That means we love to be around people. We even like to mimic people and be a part of something. And that's where it'll come to me in three, that we have all three enemies, right? And the first one obviously is the arch enemy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself warns us over and over again in the Quran, which is shaitan. Shaitan's objective is to kind of like make us lower that guard and do things that are displeasing to Allah. But guess what? He's not going to tell us this directly. He's going to kind of mend our way in doing it. And he's going to do something that's even worse, beautifying that wrong thing or making that good thing look not so beneficial. So our first enemy is shaitan. The second enemy is sometimes our own selves, the nafs. So like we are constantly in a battle with ourselves to do or not to do, to do or not to do, to do or not to do. And subhanAllah, this is something that with time we will develop. But what's the third enemy but is so powerful? The third enemy, so you have the shaitan, you have your own nafs, but then you have those you surround yourself with. Okay? And that is actually more powerful, because if you notice, we are truly social beings, that our surroundings, they really do shape us. Even the strongest of us in our faith, and say we're on point with our salah, we're on point with reading Quran and reciting it and doing all these kind of religious rituals that are positive and motivating and changing and transforming. You go and live somewhere or live in a community that they don't have that. They don't have a functioning masjid. They don't have lectures and reminders. You don't have things that you can take yourself or your kids or your family to extra activities to remind you and benefit you. What happens with that person's iman with some time? They will start high and they will start to lessen and lessen and lessen. Why? Because then whatever our environment is promoting, we're doing. So that actually is the strongest of the three. Even shaitan, he's strong, but sometimes we fight him up because they're like, it's west. He's not really in front of us pulling our hand. Even ourselves, sometimes we even slap ourselves on the hand. But when a friend or quote unquote companion is taking us by the hand and saying, hey, meet me here, or let's go here, let's do this together, whether that companion is doing something good or bad, what do you find yourself actually doing? Following. So I would say something to help us stay focused is to truly understand the power of good companionship, having good environments, being in environments that motivating us to doing good. Even as a person like myself, sometimes I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, I pray, but guess what? Sometimes I'm lazy when I get up to pray. Like I want something to motivate me to get up and pray because I'm thinking of something else. Something is distracting me. But the reality is when I push myself and I get up and I pray, I'm grateful that I prayed. I never say I wish I didn't pray. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But that motivation that somebody is with you, dragging you. Let's pray Isha together. Let's do this. Let's go here. That helps you. And you never regret those things. You never regret them. But the second that person pushes you to go do something that's not so appropriate with your time, even if it is not doing technically anything wrong, just going out and for coffee or playing cards or whatever, but it takes a whole different toll and you waste time and you tend to even say things that are inappropriate, or you even get into a dangerous conversation of gossip or slander or something. You always regret those times. You always have that ill taste in your mouth, like, I wish I didn't even go. I wish I left sooner. I wish. بس هذه بتيجي من شيطان. This is what comes from shaitan. But out of those three enemies, we really do have to have that jihad of the nafs, that inner struggle, that everything I'm inspired to do. All of us are human. All of us have those challenges. As the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said this, كل بني آدم خطاء بس خير الخطائين التوابون. That means we're all imperfect. We all will make mistakes. We all have vulnerabilities. But are we keeping ourselves in check with knowing those vulnerabilities? Are we being honest with ourselves and telling ourselves, yani we don't have to exploit it to the world. Can we tell ourselves and be accountable to ourselves and say, Lena, you do this good, but you know what? You need to control yourself when you do this. You have to do that. Wasn't it Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anh, and others that mentioned that hold yourself accountable before you're held in account? Then that means me and you and everybody else has to be honest with themselves, really asking themselves, what am I? What are the good traits do I have? What are the bad traits that I have? What are the characteristic traits that come naturally to me? And what are the traits I really have to nurture and embed it in my character? It's very important. And those people that we surround ourselves with and those environments that we choose to enter, those help us be the best version of ourselves. So either you choose to have a good environment and it's going to improve you, and you're going to be an asset to that place, and you're going to improve them and they're going to improve you, or you're going to be in a toxic environment that even if a person is good, they will find themselves deteriorate from their goodness because what they're around is more evil and more overpowering than they are. So I would say, like, something to help you, and if how it's helped me throughout my whole life, is choosing the right friends, choosing who you choose your friends. Subhanallah. Like, do you guys ever pay attention that we don't choose our mom, we don't choose our dad, we don't choose our children, our siblings, but we do choose our friends. We are the ones who choose where we go, when we go, who we go with. And that choice is either going to bring us khair and we're going to see our friends and our companions in Jannah, or we're going to be like the ayah that says, we're going to be slapping our face and slapping our hands saying, I wish I didn't take this person as my companion.
SubhanAllah. Absolutely. I totally I agree with that, Nina. I think it's so important that, subhanAllah, this concept of good company keeps popping up, if you notice, like in this since we started talking. And it the Prophet ﷺ had BFFs, right? They were his BFFs. He hung out with them so much, radiallahu anhum. And they were amazing for each other's Islam, to each other. And of course, they supported the Prophet ﷺ. And like between Abu Bakr and Umar, there was always this beautiful, healthy competition. Of course, Abu Bakr was always winning, but Umar kept trying, right? So, but it was just so cute, like the hadiths you hear about how they talk about it. It's so cute and so adorable. Like that's good friendship,
because
subhanallah.
they loved each other sincerely, but they raced for what they loved even more, and they
Oh my
always
God.
loved Allah the
Yes.
best and the most. So even regardless, as even Abu Bakr, Abu Bakr, may Allah have mercy on him and be pleased with him. Wallahi, he's an amazing companion that I love so much. He's one of my favorites. And I love when the Prophet Muhammad SAW passed and they got the news of passing, and he came out and he said, those that worship that are worshiping or follow the footsteps of the Prophet Muhammad SAW and worship the Prophet Muhammad SAW, he passed. but those that worship Allah, He's living and He never dies. And that shows you how much He's close to Him and how much He loved Him and how much He would, when He was alive, would give up His own life and wealth for Him. Allah is first. Allah is number one. And that's a true lesson for all of us, no matter what. Our mom, our dad, our children, our spouse, our friends, they're not above Allah. They're not above Allah. So we got to be mindful. Are we choosing Allah first and foremost over everything? What He is pleased with, we do. What He is displeased with, we don't do. And we not only enjoin that on ourselves, but we encourage that of those that we love. Or are we of those people that are just swaying with the winds, you know? And if a new trend comes, we do it. If we don't care if it's right or wrong or it's part of the faith or not, we just go with it. This is very dangerous for us. So we have to understand, by putting ourselves in perspective, who is truly number one in our life. And that should always, without a doubt, be Allah. Allah.
Yeah. I need to put this on a t-shirt. They loved each other so much, but raced for what they loved more. Like, Lena, I'm done. I'm done for the day. Like that is like, that is so beautiful, because it's easy to love someone you can see and touch,
Mhm.
and you physically can make
You
eye
go back
contact.
and forth with, of course.
Yes, there's experiences, there's conversations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that same opportunity. We just have to go after it. There's conversations with Allah. When we read Quran, you're having a conversation with Allah. He's talking to us, and we're receiving that information, processing it, making it our own. And we could talk to Allah about all the ayat.
Yep.
When we're, in Salah reading Surah Al-Fatiha, there's a conversation going on there. Subhanallah. In our salah, in every part of it, there's a conversation going on there. At any moment in our lives, we could speak to Allah. It's the conversation is always open.
Right.
And it's really on us to go after it. Allah's there. He's literally always there. It's up to us. If we go make an appointment, we don't need an appointment. We just show up, right?
Yeah.
And that idea of when we love Allah more than everything, including ourselves, in this hadith where Umar radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ told him that you won't believe until, correct me if I'm wrong, Nina, you won't have full iman or belief until you love me more than you love yourself. And Umar
Yeah,
was
and
like,
it's basically talking about you won't taste the sweetness of faith
yeah,
until you love Allah and love the Prophet Muhammad SAW more than you love yourself and everything else. Meaning there is nobody that's more of a priority than Allah. And if we do put Allah first, we will find that our choices would be different.
yes,
Our do's and
absolutely.
our don'ts would be completely different, subhanAllah.
And even in the way we function in those relationships that we love so much, that love for Allah will guide that, subhanAllah.
100%.
I've heard before, I don't know where I heard this, that when we're interacting with humanity, if we're interacting with humanity through interacting with Allah, then it's the best type of interactions we can create. It's the best
Yes.
behavior on our end. It's the best um, you know, contribution to that relationship and to humanity. But when we're interacting with humans and other people and the world without Allah, and it's just here, now we're left to what the best that could possibly come out of us without that interaction. And we're also left to our lower sort of desires, our lower reactions. And we don't have that cushion of divine guidance and connection that, okay, I'm interacting with someone who I know this person always gives me a hard time, or they trigger me. When I'm around them, they trigger me. I know the popular thing is like, they're toxic. I'm not talking to them anymore. Relax. Especially if it's family. You can't get rid of family unless it's like they're like drug dealers or something like that. You can't get rid of people like they're toxic. You have to face them. You have to deal with them. And in the best way. And I'm not downplaying people who are like traumatized from family members or, hurt from abuse. I'm not downplaying that. That has to be dealt with, and healing has to happen, all of those things. And proper boundaries can be put up. But the idea of just removing people from your life completely, unless there's an absolute necessity, what will help us in those difficult situations is looking at that interaction through our interaction with Allah. Ya Allah, I'm on my best behavior here. Ya Allah, I don't like what they said, and I'm going to respond, but I'm going to respond without disrespecting them, without calling them names, without putting them down. And I'm going to respond honestly. So it's not about just sucking everything in and taking hits like crazy. It's about presenting yourself in the best manner. And I find that for me, if I can focus on Allah in that moment, it helps me to reel in all the dumb things I possibly want to say, all the hurtful things I possibly want to say because I feel hurt, you know? So,
Yeah.
subhanAllah, if we could transition, Lena, from something you talked about companionship, I want to talk about now the Quran and how, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, that the month of Ramadan is that in which the Quran was brought down. هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. That it's guidance for mankind and it's proof of guidance and it's something that shows you right from wrong, clear right from wrong. How has the Quran been your companion? And you can go as far back as you want. You could talk about recent, maybe how, maybe your earliest, like, wow, this is my friend. This is what's helping me through life. This is what has my back.
I would say for me, the Quran was always very close to me, and at a young age that I didn't even realize. I honestly didn't realize how close I was. My mom, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward her so generously. That was just something that me and her did. That I was the youngest of 8 girls, and I was like my mom's little companion, I would say, for a long time. And every time we were in the car in a ride, she would put on Juz Amma, Abdul Basit, Juz Amma. And at a very young age, I was talking about 6 and 7 years old, she would play it and I would just go ahead and reciting it. I love to, people that know me know I like to hum and I like to sing, and I'm pretty like bubbly in that sense. So I'm very passionate about it. So subhanAllah, as a kid, I'm not really sure what I'm saying, but I ended up memorizing Juz Amma and reciting it with one of the best and hardest reciters to recite with, which was Abdul Basit. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him and reward him very generously as well. But subhanAllah, I was reciting and doing it the whole time. And I would sit in the back of the van doing this. And one day my aunt comes into the car and she's riding with us, and she's like, she's listening to me, and she's like, mashallah, هذه حافظة كل هذا. بتقول لها, yeah. My mom told her that I put the tape for her, and the whole ride she's saying it. So at that age, I'll be honest, I don't know what I was feeling, but I did feel one thing for certain. I felt peace. I felt peace when I was reciting. And that was to me, and that actually got me attached to the Quran, like growing up, and I loved reciting it. Like I told you, it started off with me liking harmonies and kind of like when to lower my voice, when to higher the voice, to as I got older, I felt so comfortable every time I heard it, that it was something that always gave my heart peace. And growing up till now and being a person who gives lectures and gives tafsir and breaks down the stories, what it only has helped me with is what it's supposed to help us with. Why was the Quran revealed? Wallahi, we have to look at it this way. It is not for our entertainment. It is not just for us to read and make sure we read a certain amount and that's it. You said this in the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that it brought down the Quran for it to kind of penetrate us and guide us and be a nur in an aspect of our life. That means if we're approaching the Quran just to read it and to finish it and to complete it and not take anything from it, then we're wrong. We're hurting ourselves. We're doing an injustice actually to ourselves. Because what we actually are holding in our hands and hearing and listening and reciting is a true miracle that still exists till this day. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed these ayat, this is strictly a conversation Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sharing with us. That when we approach the Quran, Do not approach it as a book. Do not approach it as a book that it's just like any other book. No, these are actually the words of Allah. You want Allah to talk to you? Read the Quran, because this is what He said to His beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This is what He chose to send down through Angel Jibreel, or directly say to him, to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, to portray the message to us even till the end of time. This is Allah talking. It's kind of like when the president is coming to a public speech, doesn't everybody tune in and turn on the volume? Why? And who is the president compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who is the judge? Who is the teacher? But besides the creator of Allah, when He tells us something, we should be able to open our ears, open our eyes, expand our chest, and really reflect on what's being said. Now, why is the Quran revealed? Among it is to do what? Give us hikmah. Hikmah is beyond knowledge. يعني إحنا, obviously we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for knowledge, but we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for hikmah.
Yeah.
Why? Because it doesn't matter what we know. If we don't have hikmah and implement what we know in the proper times and places, then wallahi, what's the point of our knowledge? And this is what makes a person wise. That's the wisdom. When we hear in Surah Luqman, who's Luqman? Luqman, we say alayhi salam, and he's not even a prophet of God, but he was what? A righteous man who was wise. He was wise. He just knew the right thing at the right time. And subhanAllah, we see this all the time. We see many people are very advanced, very smart academically, carry a lot of degrees, reach high levels, but yet when you come to approach them and talk to them, you say, Wallahi, how'd they get that degree? You start to even think, like, how did they do it? And why can't I even attain it? Why? Because sometimes it's not only knowledge that's needed. We need hikmah in order to implement that knowledge where it needs to be implemented, subhanAllah. And one of the beautiful things about the Quran is Allah revealed it to grant us, to give us that hikmah, where He shares so many different things for us to understand and learn from people of the past. When we look at many of the ayat are of stories of people of the past, from the past. It is to give us glad tidings. It is to give us warning. It is to comfort us and console us. It is to enlighten us. The Quran is everything. It's actually everything. That truly, a long time ago, I remember hearing it when I was a kid, and it stayed with me. The Quran is not just anything. It is truly our handbook. It's our guide. Everything that we do, wherever we are, we need to go back to it and learn from it and see what it says about what it is that we're about to embark, because it is truly our manual. Anything that we buy, doesn't it come with a manual? Islam is not just a religion. We carry this big, huge banner and we say we're Muslimin. No, we have to live our Islam. And the way we live it is by implementing the Quran. And that Quran is going to help us and guide us, as it meant to help the Prophet and to empower his message and to give him glad tidings and to warn those who disbelieve. But it's also number one thing that it does, consoles the heart. It says that the heart will not find peace but with the remembrance of Allah. And this is what we have to truly 100% believe, that when we're going through anything, wallahi, that glad tiding, that gives us sabr. When you look at our brothers and sisters in Gaza, you have amongst the most huffaz in that small territory. And when they're going through stuff, what are they uttering? What are they uttering? Go back. They're uttering, they're reading the Quran, they're reading verses of the Quran. Even in this worst, disgusting atrocities that we see, they're still standing on their legs because of this powerful message. This powerful message. So we have to go back and say, what is it that I'm not taking from it? What is it that I need to start doing to start taking from it? And don't just make it a race to finish from cover to cover. Make it a race to understand the message.
Yes, absolutely. Now, I'm so glad this is recorded because I want to go back and hear everything you just said, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Lina. Really, subhanallah, I was gonna end with saying how can we prepare for Ramadan, but I'm not even gonna ask because honestly, if we just take what you're saying about the Quran by itself and take all of this, these thoughts that the Quran is a miracle. It is a miracle. And humans, we love miracles. We love things that are like fantastical and that's why we love like the Harry Potter movies and like the Marvel movies, because it's like, wow, how did this happen? This is amazing if this really happened in real life. But this is something beyond even that. And it really is a matter of, are we paying attention or not? Are we giving the time it requires to tune into that miracle or not? Because it's
100%.
literally right there on all of our shelves. It's sitting there. And it is the final miracle, subhanAllah, or the last miracle that Allah sent with the last prophet, alayhi salam. Um, and so for us to remember that this isn't just a book, it is a miracle. And it's, 604 pages of a miracle. That's a lot of pages. Allah could have sent like a 5-page thing that we just keep reading over and over and over. He could have done whatever he wanted. But he gave us all of this, um, I don't want to say information. Part of it is information, but it's information infused with divine light and guidance that is meant to serve our hearts and guide our decisions and our actions. It's meant to feed us so that we can succeed in this life and succeed in the akhirah. And it's literally sitting right there. And I think we too much, and I can speak for myself, we're not paying attention. We're just not paying attention. So I'm excited for Ramadan to come back and shake us out of our slumber, shake us out of our distractions, pull us back into giving the Quran the attention it needs so that we can get the attention and care that we need, that we're looking
Definitely.
for in every other place.
Yeah.
So, subhanAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to reach Ramadan,
Mhm.
complete Ramadan. May
Amen.
Allah allow us to benefit from the barakah and the forgiveness and the iman growth during Ramadan. May
Amen.
Allah allow us to get closer to Him and to the Prophet ﷺ and to the
Mhm.
companions, and
Yeah.
for the Prophet ﷺ and the companions to become our favorite companions, and for
Mhm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be the one we want to be with all the time.
Yeah.
Um, Jazakallah khair, Lina, again, for sharing your time and your wisdom. May Allah increase you in knowledge and in wisdom and in goodness and
Thank you.
allow us to continue benefiting from you, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Awesome. Ameen.
وإياك.
And to you too, and all those that are listening, inshallah.
آمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين.